You know, a wise person once said, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. It's about what gets you there. And the same can really be said about video game collecting, that sometimes it's not about the items or the holy grails themselves, but about the journey that actually got you there, and the stories that actually come behind it, whether they be from the now or from your childhood. So yep, you know what time it is, folks. That means it's time for yet another episode of Gaming Items I'm Proud to Own. And today I'm going to take on another 3 items that I hold close to my heart, and I'm going to share those stories with you right now. I'm G, and welcome to the next level. So the first item I'm going to talk about today actually happens to come to kind of a very important subject. So within the last couple of months of recording this video, another hot topic that always seems to cycle around when it comes to video games is video games and gun violence. Like, is there really any sort of correlation between the two? Now, of course, that's something that's a hot topic in debate. In fact, recently I appeared on a television news editorial with my buddy Kyle from Houston Retro Gamers talking all about it.
If anything, video games are actually helpful in that, because now whatever those aggressions that you have, you can take it out on a fictional character in a game.
I just would like to see to the point where people see video games as a form of entertainment, not as a triggering mechanism for a violent act.
And it was because of that editorial that I got the inspiration to tell my tale about my getting this. So who here is a fan of Lethal Enforcers? I know I'm a huge fan of it. And so this is the full complete set of Lethal Enforcers for the Sega Genesis. Now, of course, it comes with the game, and it comes with the manual and the Justifier light gun, which of course you can't use on TVs today. You can only use them on classic TVs. But I remember when I was a kid, like, seeing Lethal Enforcers actually in the arcade. In fact, that very same arcade that, I know I've talked about this before too, about my dad and I playing in the arcades together when we go to bowling alleys. And I remember Lethal Enforcers being there. And it was a big thing because everybody it was around that same digitized era. Mortal Kombat, Pit Fighter, everything like that was super popular. And normally my parents were okay with me playing games like Mortal Kombat and whatnot. But Lethal Enforcers, like when my dad and I played it for the first time, and he saw like the realistic looking enemies and the blood shot like actually out of the glass, which this is probably a good time for me to tell you that this game actually is a mature rated game, so you know, heads up. But I would say that it was around that time that he was just like, you know, Mortal Kombat's okay, but Lethal Enforcers, nah, we're not gonna get you that. I remember asking my dad for it for Christmas, and they were like, no. Well, you know, I understand that, and it's like, I totally respect that, because, you know, I wasn't old enough at that point in time. But I'm just like, okay, if I can have Mortal Kombat, why can't I have this? And so, you know, they were still just like, nah, you can't have it. So, of course, I was just, you know, sad in the fact that I couldn't get it for Christmas. So, here's how I actually got it. So I was in New Orleans at the time. Most of my family, my grandparents, most of the rest of my family live in New Orleans. And my dad was out on a business trip, and I believe my mom and my sister were out on like a cruise or something like that. But anyway, I was staying with one of my aunts and uncles while we were there. And so I was there for a long time. I think it was like a week that I was actually there. And at the time, my uncle, he was into games too. And so this was at the time when Blockbuster Video was still around, and you could actually rent consoles as well as games. And so he took me there, and he was just like, okay, George, what do you want? What do you want to rent? And I was just looking at all the games, and, you know, thinking to myself, they had a copy of Lethal Enforcers to rent. And I was just like, you know, I want that one. And so, yeah, he rented the system, including those cool system cases that hopefully I can own someday. He rented that, Lethal Enforcers, and Ren and Stimpy. And that was my exposure to Ren and Stimpy's Invention as well. And so we played that so much throughout the entire week. And we brought it back before my parents actually came and got me. So they had no idea. And my uncle never actually told him about it either. I think he actually had kind of known, because I believe I told him, he was just like, let's keep this our little secret. Shh. Christmas rolled around. And this was the same year that, of course, I did get Ren and Stimpy. Now, we're over in Louisiana, and we're actually opening up Christmas gifts or giving gifts in a way. And my grandma handed me my gift, and it was a big box. And I was just like, ooh, I wonder what's inside this box. And sure enough, it was Lethal Enforcers. And I guess my uncle had told her that I wanted it, and they didn't know that my parents weren't going to get it for me, or however. The look on my dad's face when it happened, I was like, ooh, I know I'm in trouble. The ride home, that was pretty awkward, but in the meantime, like during that ride home, my dad had just kind of thought to himself, and he was just like, you know what, son, if you can prove to me that this isn't going to affect you in any way, then you can keep it. But as soon as you start acting up and as soon as your grades get bad, it's gone, you know? And sure enough, that's all the motivation I needed. I mean, I turned out okay, right? And so yeah, that's how I got Lethal Enforcers. Now, another interesting story is how I got this guy too. This is the Player 2 Justifier gun. Now, the funny thing about the Justifier guns, in fact, let's do this. So, here's everything there. There's the gun and the game in the manual. Now, what's interesting about the gun is that the gun plugs into the Genesis port. But what's really interesting about that is this. The 2-player gun actually uses a phone connection that plugs into the bottom of the Player 1 gun, and they daisy chain to each other. Like that. So, which actually, you know what, I guess for those who, you know, want to be a badass and want to just, you know, two-player with just these, that would actually be funny, but, I mean, just imagine just the closest. Now, I never had the Player 2 gun as a kid. Funny thing is that I got the Player 2 gun pretty much right when Jenny and I first got together, when my wife and I first got together. We got this at a Games Plus out in Bay Area. And, yeah, what's interesting about this is that for the entire time I got it, not even realizing that this isn't even the Genesis version, even though it works. Somebody on Twitter actually had pointed it out to me that this could be the Super Famicom version, because the Genesis version is pink, the Super Nintendo version is a different shade of orange. This one, it's strange, you know? And you know, just how, if they're right, and it's the Super Famicom version, how in the world did this get into a Games Plus out in Bay Area? I don't get that, but in any case, though, I mean, Lethal Enforcers is an awesome game, and, you know, I've already kind of said my piece about the whole gun violence in relation to video games, so go check that out, but at the same time, though, it's an awesome game. It's one of my favorite light gun games. I mean, right next to the House of the Dead 2 and Ghost Squad and Time Crisis 2, and you know what? I'd like to see a new Lethal Enforcers. How about that? So the next item I'm going to talk about is a Dreamcast item. So as of the time of this recording, it is 9/9/19. It's just happened, the 20th anniversary of the Dreamcast just passed us by. I just made a whole video about my time on 9/9/99, so go check that out. I'll put a link in the top corner here for that. But the item I'm going to talk about today is a game that actually came out on the Dreamcast much later, but was just as influential as any of those launch titles, and it's Phantasy Star Online. Now, I'm a huge fan of Phantasy Star Online. I know it's a polarizing kind of game in the realm of the Phantasy Star fan base. Like, some people love it, some people hate it, some people just don't even bother with it because it's not a traditional Phantasy Star game, and some people it's like their bread and butter. You know, I completely understand that. Me, I love the original Phantasy Star series dearly. Phantasy Star 2 and 4 are two of my favorite games of all time, but I will hand it to Phantasy Star Online. Now, just like most people, I was pretty skeptical on it, and of course, this is around the same time, so, you know, I was still in college, I was working at Funkoland at the same time, so I was just like, okay, I'm still not really sold on Phantasy Star Online. Plus, you know, you gotta get Sega Net and all that kind of stuff. We didn't even have broadband internet yet, you know, so we were in that same spot. Well, hell, hardly anybody did at that time. But I will say that it took me a while to get, I was just like, I'm not really into it, you know. I wasn't really into EverQuest and any of that, so I was just like, okay, whatever. Until one day after college, I actually went over to a friend of mine's house. I believe his name was Paul, I believe. I went over to his house, and we played Phantasy Star Online for the first time, and I was hooked. I was immediately hooked. And so the next day I went up to my Funkoland, I bought my copy of Phantasy Star Online, and then of course I bought version 2, so I bought both versions, and I was just like, so many hours, so many memories. I mean, there's just so much to Phantasy Star Online, whether it's just gathering all the rare items, playing through the stories, catching every single weapon, trying to max out those spread needles, doing everything that you possibly can, meeting up with random people that I didn't really have any sort of negative experiences in the time that I was playing Phantasy Star Online. It was just such a blast, you know, and it was something that, it was really my first exposure to online gaming, to an extent. I mean, yeah, there was Choo Choo Rocket before that, but this was really my first exposure to it. But there was one thing that I super hold dear to me about Phantasy Star Online that goes beyond these games. So like I said, I was working for FuncoLand at that time, and you know how FuncoLand and GameStop, you know, they'll get their displays. They'll get their special displays that you actually see on the tables, on the shelves, on their standees, all that fun stuff. You'll get all those cool, awesome displays that you're just like, man, I wish I could take that home. And this was even at a time that, like, the employees weren't even always able to take home those standees and those specials. But my manager at the time, Terry, the same one that gave me that Knights demo, she knew that I had my eyes on this piece of Phantasy Star Online awesomeness. I was just like, I want this so bad. But then they were going to get rid of it, and they're like, okay, it's yours if you want it. So check this out. It's a Phantasy Star Online 3D standee. This is beautiful. I absolutely love it, because it basically just shows the entire art of all the characters. I've kept it in for mostly good shape throughout the years. It's been through a couple of moves, of course, but it's actually still in really great shape. And just Phantasy Star Online, man, it's just, whether you love it or hate it, you can't deny just how big it actually made console gaming for online gaming. It really is. You are not the only hero. Indeed. And actually, what kind of characters did you play when you played Phantasy Star Online? It's like, were you a HuCast? Were you a Phone World? It's like, what classes were your favorites? I mean, I remember I actually had a HuCast and I had a Phone World. Those were one of my two characters. In fact, I had actually made my my Phone World look like Ica from Skies of Arcadia. It was just crazy things like that, and I absolutely love Phantasy Star Online. And then the love just continued on and on beyond that. Like, I got both the GameCube games. I got Episode 1, I got Episode 1 and 2 Plus, I even got it on the Xbox. I paid for Xbox Live and everything. Now, unfortunately, this game's completely useless now, but man, just Phantasy Star Online it was incredible. It was an incredible game, and this will always hold a special place in my heart, and I'll cherish it forever. But I will say this, though, come next year when Phantasy Star Online 2 comes out, I'll see you on. I mean, I'll be on Xbox One. I believe it's supposed to be cross-play at this point, but Phantasy Star Online 2, whoo, yeah, it's happening. But as far as items I'm proud to own, this is going back up on my wall. It stays close to my heart. So the final gaming item that gets the spotlight today is going to be something that is super, super sentimental to me. Now, for those of you who've known me for a while and have actually been watching the channel for a while, you'll know that one of my favorite games to play and something that's been super influential in my life is Dance Dance Revolution, DDR. It basically helped me come out of my social shell, if you will. I mean, I was more or less just kind of a meek person. I wasn't really social, but DDR was really something that not only was it good for exercise, but was good for me socially. And I basically met some of my best friends through DDR. I happened to get my first job, like, out of college as a DDR, beyond GameStop. You know, I even met my wife through DDR. I became part of the cosplay community, which I'm going to talk about that later. That all became part of DDR. It's like almost everything in my life kind of came full circle for that game. And yes, I've talked about that before too in that Station Theater interview. So I won't go too terribly deep about that, but I will say the item that I'm going to talk about today is one of the reasons why I became so good at DDR. So you know how DDR works. You got a dance flip mat in front of you, you have 4 panels, you match what's actually on the screen. You go along with the tempo of the music, and it actually increases depending on your difficulty, the speed of the song, and many other factors that are actually a part of it. So how do you think that you get well? How do you think that you get good by practicing at DDR? Beyond just dancing on the mat, learning the songs, listening to the soundtracks. Yes, I have the soundtracks. I can tell you one advantage that I had, and it's this guy. This is a Naki handpad for the PlayStation 1. I remember seeing this guy. I bought it at, of course, FuncoLand. I remember seeing this guy, and I was just like, this is so cool, because it looks almost exactly like a dance pad. And it's so unique in the fact that, and it works almost perfectly with the game too. So whenever you're playing through it, it's like, I kind of learned, because you're using your thumbs. When you're using your thumbs, or you can use your fingers, however you want to do it. But when you're using your thumbs, it's just, what's actually so cool about this is that I believe I could say, when you watch somebody who's really good at DDR, and you can actually see whenever they make their transitions. They actually can make these smooth transitions. If you've ever seen somebody like me play DDR, you can actually notice that. It's hard to see because, you know, the camera's up here, right? But I believe I actually really, learning those transitions actually made it a lot easier for me to do it by actually using this handpad. Now, like I said, it looks almost exactly like a home pad. It's very well loved. The panels for the X button and the triangle button, they're gone. They're pretty much gone, but it still works. I actually got a chance to test it, and yeah, the pad still works. But this isn't the only one though, because I actually found something that was even better. So I was just randomly going through eBay one day, and as I was randomly like shuffling through eBay and just looking at Dance Dance Revolution items, because at that time there were really only 3 games that were released in North America for the PlayStation 1. The original DDR, DDR Economics, which is one of the best mixes of the game ever, still to this day, and DDR Disney Mix, which, okay. So I was looking through like Yahoo Auctions and eBay to try to see about other games that I could actually import. And then I found that there's actually an official Konami hand controller for DDR, and I had to have it. And there it is. This is the official hand controller. Now, if you'll notice on this one, it's a little bit different because it's actually shaped like playing doubles on DDR. And it even has these top buttons at the top, which are supposed to represent solo mode. Now, for those who don't know, solo mode is a unique way to play DDR. There's only one version of the game, it's DDR Solo 2000, and you can actually play a 6-panel game where the top left and the top right are actually part of the game. And it is hard as hell, but I love it. If there is one way, like, if there's something I could say, like, one question that I get asked a lot is, if you could have any arcade games, what would you have? And of course I'm going to say I want a DDR machine, but I want 2 DDR machines. I want a modern DDR machine, which I guess may be either Extreme, Supernova 2, DDR-A, however, and then I want a Solo 2000 machine, just because I want to be able to play 6-panel DDR. But anyway, back to the controller though. Yeah, it's officially licensed, and it's a pretty little thing, you know, but it's just that every time I see anything related to DDR, like, I just harken back to those good old days, you know, before my knees were completely shot. And it's like those days when, you know, this kind of reminds me back to the carefree days. And most retro games will do that nowadays. And it's like you go back and you play your favorites like Mario and Sonic, however. If there's one game that I could really say that really hits me hard in the feels, like every time that I get on a dance pad and I play nowadays, it's DDR. And I am so glad that DDR is still going to this day. It also just reached its 20th anniversary. And it's like, I'm so glad that it's still going today. The fan base is still going strong. And we even got new dance games such as Dance Rush, which I absolutely love. If you see a Dance Rush machine, go play it. It's incredible. And I'm just like, but every time that I look at anything DDR, I just get the absolute feels out of it. And so that's why this controller is right there, and my other hand controller, forever special. And DDR will always be forever special. And thanks to DDR, I met the love of my life, I met so many friends, I might not even be doing this video right now if it weren't for DDR. So, long live DDR. Thank you, Konami. So yeah, those are 3 more gaming items that I'm proud to own, and once again, it's always incredible sharing these wonderful stories with you. So if you enjoyed it, do me a big favor, give it a thumbs up, talk to me in the comments below, and tell me some of your favorite gaming items, or maybe you share some stories about Lethal Enforcers, or Phantasy Star Online, whatever the case might be. Talk to me. Or of course you can talk to me on social media, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at G to the Next Level. And as always folks, keep on gaming, and keep being awesome. I'm G, and I'll see you on the next level.